Hello and welcome everyone to this important stakeholder dialogue organized by Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition and Nutrition Future Initiatives under the Thrive series. I am Ruchi Sareen and I'll be guiding you through today's webinar titled Understanding the Updated THR Norms, What's New, What's Next. Uh, we are thrilled to have you joining us over here today. Uh, can you like a little bit about the series? Thrive series is a part of broader Nutrition Future Initiatives, which is a multi-stakeholder co-innovation platform that brings together policymakers, development practitioners, social innovators, and local communities to improve how nutrition is delivered via social protection systems. With the series, we aim to facilitate shared learning and strengthen nutrition delivery through take-home rations, which is a vital intervention under India's flagship program, Portion 2.0 and Saksham Anganwadi. A little bit about this webinar. This webinar brings together a diverse set of stakeholders to discuss the implications of these updated nutritional guidelines for take-home rations and explore opportunities for scaling nutrient-rich, safe, and effective THR models across the states. With this discussion, we aim to support alignment with revised standards while enhancing the nutritional impact of THR for children under 3, pregnant and breastfeeding mothers, ultimately contributing to a stronger nutrition resilience among India's most vulnerable population groups. With this, I'll be sharing few housekeeping rules also. The session is getting recorded and it will be available along with the presentation on the socialprotection.org website, and it will also be shared to all the registered participants after the session. Please feel free to use the chat box icon to present yourself, to make comments, or to share useful links. I would also encourage you all to use Q&A box to please share your questions along with your name and organizations, and also indicate if you want to direct this question to a specific speaker. As we move ahead, the session flow will look like this, that first 5 minutes are for introduction, which I'm covering right now. This will be followed by a technical presentation, then an engaging panel discussion for 45 minutes. In the last, we would have a question answer round for 20 minutes, followed by a closing remark for 5 minutes. I'll also take the opportunity to introduce the speakers now. With us, we have today Dr. N. Arlappa. He's a head of division public health nutrition at ICMR-National Institute of Nutrition. In India, he's also a researcher with almost 3 decades of experience and also a distinguished voice in nutrition science and policy in the country. For our panel discussion, we are delighted to have Ms. Bhuvneshwari Balasubramanian, Country Director at GAIN India, as a moderator. And we are also honored to be joined by an outstanding panel of experts. First up, we have Shri Vinay Kumar Rai. He is a seasoned public administrator with over 32 years of experience, currently serving at Bihar Rural Livelihood Promotion Society, commonly known as Jivika, as Director Enterprise, where he leads the livelihood vertical. Next, we have Dr. Sirimavo Nair with us. She's a scientist and chair of panel Nutrition and Fortification at FSSAI. Dr. Nair brings over 3 decades of international experience spanning teaching, research, leadership across multiple disciplines. Her work reflects a thoughtful approach to translate scientific knowledge into practical programmatic solutions informed by a strong grounding in humanities. We also have with us Dr. Shariqua Yunus Khan. She's a public health expert and head of nutrition and school feeding unit at World Food Program India. In this role, she has supported several countries in their quest against anemia and micronutrient malnutrition. With over 20 years of experience, she brings deep expertise in maternal and child health, community nutrition, and public health strategy. I welcome you all to today's webinar. With this, now I'll hand it over to Dr. Arlappa to walk us through the updated NFSA guidelines and share how this presents a pivotal opportunity to address supplementary nutrition comprehensively. Over to you, Dr. Arlappa.
Good evening to all the participants of this webinar and warm greeting from the National Institute of Nutrition, Hyderabad. First of all, I would like to sincerely thank GAIN and Social Protection for giving me this opportunity to be part of this important webinar. The title of my presentation for today's webinar is Revised National Food Security Guidelines for Take-Home Ration, an opportunity to address these supplementary nutrition needs comprehensively. Take-home ration is one of the two important components of the supplementary nutrition program under the Integrated Child Development Services Scheme, the world's largest flagship nutrition program in India. All of us are aware that optimal nutrition is crucial for growth, development, health, and overall well-being. Therefore, access to proper nutrition is a basic human right. FAO's World Food Day 2024 theme also highlights the same, where it says, right to food for a better life and better future. Article 47 of the Indian Constitution also emphasizes that it is a primary duty of the state to improve the level of nutrition of its population. Keeping in view, the Government of India introduced National Nutrition Food Security Act of 2013 to ensure food and nutrition security throughout the life cycle approach. In this direction, it has launched several supplementary nutrition programs in India, and ICDS is the one of them. Under this, children aged 6 to 36 months, 3 to 6 years, pregnant women, lactating mothers, and in Sabala programs, some adolescent girls also beneficiaries. So in the same line, the Government of India also launched several national nutrition programs to address the micronutrient deficiencies, particularly with respect to the vitamin A deficiency, iron deficiency, anemia, and iodine deficiency. In a similar line, it also launched several supplementary national nutrition programs. All these above programs are in operation for more than 5 decades. However, NNMB periodic nutrition surveys across India, the time trends reveal that in general, the population is subsisting on inadequate diets. Dietary diversity is extremely poor and has not improved over 5 decades of time. The intakes of several multiple micronutrients, rich foods, particularly with respect to leafy and non-leafy vegetables, fruits, milk and milk products are very, very poor. Similarly, with respect to animal source foods are negligible. About half of the mothers are not practicing exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months to their infants, and similar proportion are not initiating complementary food to their infant immediately after completion of the 6 months. The same was reflected in this NFHS 5 survey, where the minimum acceptable diet among the across Indian states are only 11%. It is extremely pathetic. This is a minimum expected derived by calculating the minimum dietary diversity, that is, the children should consume minimum 5 foods among the 8 food groups. Is what they should practice minimum meal frequency. That is, they raise 6 to 8 month children, it is 3 times per day, whereas 9 to 24 months, it is 4 times, whereas it is non-breastfeeding children, it is 5 times per day. The proportion is extremely poor. That's why it is reflected in the nutrient intakes of the 1 to 5 year children across India. You can see that the RDA for vitamin A is 390 micrograms, whereas tribal children, 1 to 5, 3 children are consuming only 32 micrograms through their diet. Similarly, rural area also it is 61 micrograms. You can see any micronutrient, they are not meeting even 1/3 of their requirement, even in urban areas. That's why the diets are very poor with respect to multiple micronutrients. In India, about 28% of children are born with stunting. At the birth itself, they are stunted. It is around 28% as per the NFHS 5 survey. When till the 6 months of their infancy, it is decreasing from 28 to 21% because of the exclusive breastfeeding of a breastfeeding component. After 6 months, since the volume of breast milk is not sufficient to meet the nutrition requirement of the infant, the prevalence of stunting is increasing gradually from month to month. It is reaching maximum at 18 months, that is at 42% NFHS 5, and coming to 24 months, coming to about 36% at 24 months. Once again, it is a little bit that the spike is going upwards. Only it stabilized at the 36 months. Afterwards, it is almost the plateau. So it is the important opportunity. We have to address this issue when the child are 6 to 24 months of age, where we have to practice appropriate IBC practices, particularly optimal THR, to address the issue, so that we can bring down this drop below the desirable levels of undernutrition compared to the prevailing high prevalence of stunting and wasting. In the THR, there was a several evaluation. It has changed several times, though it is launched 1975. It revised several times. 2019, 2013, 2017. The major revision is taken place during 2023. Because earlier, several states used to provide this THR as a dry ration. Later, even some states are following even dry ration now also. And the other states are giving it a different powder form to meet the nutrient requirement of the child. We have analyzed the take-home ration provided by the Niti Aayog, and these are for the THR and other SCM to the children of normal nutritional status, where these children are required. The requirements of energy protein are equal same across the all age groups, 6 months to up to 72 months. The Jammu Kashmir, Mizoram, Chandigarh, and Punjab, West Bengal, Puducherry, though their requirement is 500 kilocalories, their THR contain more calories. It could be due to the high proportion of the sugar in their THR. Similarly, some states like Mizoram, Karnataka, Bihar, Andaman Nicobar, they are providing more than the required the protein to their THR. With respect to SAM children, the recommendation is 800 kilocalories of energy and 20 to 25 grams of protein. However, some state the composition of the THR is more than that calories and proteins, particularly with respect to Karnataka, Mizoram, West Bengal. While some other states are not meeting the requirements of energy protein. Some states are providing egg and milk where applicable, particularly Tripura, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Karnataka providing egg and milk, whereas Gujarat and other some states are giving only milk because of cultural practices. The content of the energy in the THR in general, we review this one THR levels provided by the Niti Aayog. The content of energy in THR is very high in some states. Though the recommended norms of protein are 12.5 grams for normal children and 20 to 25 grams for SAM children, in some states they are providing more than up to 2 times of the RDA protein. However, the THR contains the majority of micronutrients. There are the grossly deficit against their RDAs. We can improve the micronutrient content of the THR by improving by fortification or by including the locally available leafy, non-leaf vegetables and seasonal fruits. In general, majority of the states do not have providing the special food for SAM children. They are giving the double ration of the existing food which are provided to the normal children. That's why the nutritional needs of the SAM children are not met in majority of the states. That's why there is a need for the provision of special food. For that, we calculated the average body weight of the SAM children as per the NFHS 5 survey, and also calculated energy protein consumption among the SAM children using the NNMB diet survey. Also, we calculated the requirements of energy protein based on WHO recommended body weights, and we derived the gaps in the protein energy intake. To fill these gaps, we need to improve the existing THR, which is meant for the normal children, to meet the additional nutrient requirement of the SAM children. You can see that the first one 6 to 35 months, the SAM children average body weight is 7.5 kilograms. That is SAM children. But as per the WHO recommended to catch up diet for these SAM children is the requirement is 175 kilocalories per kg body weight. If you calculate 7.5 body weight, it comes around 19 kilocalories. But actual intake of SAM children of this the energy as per the NNMB service is 554 calories. The deficit, you can see that 765 calories are deficit. Whereas for 14 requirements for this 6 to 35 children, 23 grams. Therefore, the regular THR not sufficient to meet the additional demand of 260 kilocalories for the SAM child. There is no special food for SAM children in majority of the states. Now, NFS keeping in view all this, the National Food Sector revised the nutrition standards 2023 to address these gaps. An interim ministerial committee was constituted to revise the schedule of 2 of the NFS 2013. The recommendations include the provision of the nutrition norm should be go beyond energy and protein, include quality protein, also essential micronutrient, 1/3 of the year, include combination of cereals and pulses at the ratio of 2:1, include adequate quantities of vegetables, nuts, seeds, and moderate amounts of vegetable oils. For to obtain the quality protein, egg should be supplemented if culturally acceptable daily, and milk also should be provided daily to meet the quality requirements of quality proteins. This is the new standards, GSTAT 2023. You can see earlier existing, there is the same calorie and protein requirement across all age groups. However, this revised NFS recommends that there is a different cutoffs for different age groups. You can see 16 12 month energy requirement is 200 kilocalories, whereas 1 to 3 year children it is 400. Similarly, the malnourished children it is 6 to 12 months 400 kilocalories, whereas for 1 to 3 year children it is 700 kilo. Likewise, they have recommended separate protein or all other micronutrients. But only thing is they recommended micronutrients against their EAR, 1/3 of EAR. But whereas the existing practice of FSSAI also recommended any fortification there should be 1/3 of at least 1/3 of the RDA, not EAR. The salient points from the revised FSSAI standards are, in contrast to the existing norm, energy and protein needs are now set differently for each age group and normal and undernourished children. In the revised standard, the importance of micronutrients in the THR was also emphasized. However, it recommends 1/3 of the year for each nutrient. Therefore, 1/3 of the year is too low to address the current burden of multiple micronutrient deficiencies in India. Hence, there is a need to revise the 1/3 to half of the RDA as the existing diets of children are grossly deficient in multiple micronutrients. The Ministry of Women and Child Development government have also released advisory to the Anganwadi centers in across all the states on sugar and state. The advisory is the children under 2-year children in the THR they should not add any sugars. If at all you are adding sugar, it should be about 5% of their total energy intake. It also refined sugars are not permitted to add in this THR. If at all they are adding jaggery, it should be also they meet all 5% of their required calories. With respect to salt, they are advising that limit the usage of salt, the THR. If you go by these nutrition standards and the DWCD directives, you can see to meet the 200 and 400 kilocalories, they need sugar calories from sugar only 10 and 20. That's why 1 to 6 to 12 months children they should THR should contain only 2.5 grams of sugar, whereas 1 to 3 for normal children 5 grams. With respect to undernourished 6 to 12 months, it is 5 grams. And 1 to 3 children, the sugar should not exceed 9 grams. As per the norms, we have to strictly adhere to this one. But implementation challenges are there if you adhere to it. If the sugar content is reduced in the THR, there is a need to add extra amounts of other foods to meet the calorie requirements. It will increase the overall volume of the THR, which may be difficult for children to consume. Reformulation to meet nutrient standards will raise costs of the THR significantly. Many state governments are hesitant to implement it due to the higher financial burden on them. Therefore, there is a need a clear cost sharing mechanism between center and state. Then only it will be implementable. Otherwise, currently many states are not adding any additional amount to the central budget. Only few states are adding central state budget to augment the improvement the nutritional norms of the THR. The key suggestions are there is urgent need for the implementation of the revised THR norms across all the states because the existing norms, our undernutrition cannot be improved. It is almost stagnant. To reach our sustainable development goals, there is an urgent need to implement this because it contains more protein and age-specific calories and protein as well as the micronutrients. Design and roll out the special THR for SAM children with the existing THR only meant for the normal children, whereas SAM children, they cannot gain any of this profit from this one. Use FSSAI RDA-based guidelines for the fortification of micronutrients and encourage intersectoral convergence and state-level customization with central support. Then only we can meet our nutritional indicators improvement so that our global hunger index and other nutrition indicators will improve so that the burden of undernutrition among under 5 children will be minimized and the mortality morbidity patterns we can bring down. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arlappa, for this insightful and enriching discussion. Now I'll hand it over to Ms. Bhuvneshwari Balasubramanian to continue with the panel discussion.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ruchi. I want to start by thanking Dr. Arlappa for this brilliant context setting and some of the key points that you have raised in terms of where we are in terms of our minimum acceptable diet for children, what is the need for optimum I/CF practices, what does the new THR guideline mean, and some of the key points around the adequacy for different age groups. We'll touch upon this a little bit as we go into our panel discussion, and I'm really excited to have with me Professor Sirimavo Nair, Dr. Shariqua, and our director from Jivika, Shri Vinay Kumar Rai. I will start with Dr. Sirimavo Nair. We heard about and you're no stranger to the whole area of work in THR, Dr. Nair. After what we've heard from Dr. Arlappa and having known the trajectory of how THR guidelines have evolved and where we are right now, what do you think can be done to help states adopt these suggested revisions of THR formulations?
Thank you so much, Gain and Dr. Bhuvneshwari and Social Protection for inviting me. Good afternoon to everyone who is online. And the question very clearly points out states are to adopt. So the first government rollout which was given was the states also have a budget and there is a central allocation which is also given to them. Now, beyond that, when we want to take up these issues, the states have to find out resources which they can use and also modulate their inputs from the local ingredients which are available. So when we take the local ingredients, as very clearly as Dr. Arlappa pointed out, the difference in the cost which is to be coming in versus the nutrient intake can be adjusted. So when we take some of our local produces and use it along with the THR which is being designed, it will help us to modulate depending upon the region wise, depending upon the cultural habits, depending upon the food habits which each place would be requiring. So that's the first point. The second point is there are some of the states which would be consuming eggs or some of the states which are able to afford more of milk producers which are given, and some of the states are also looking into giving a little bit of other food products which they can afford or they can locally avail. So Both these together should help us, all the states in India, to take this little forward. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Nair. I want to come to you, Shariqua. You know, with WFP, you've done a significant amount of work in the THR space in India. What do you see as the key implementation concerns or bottlenecks as we look at states rolling out revised THR norms? And if you can share experience from your state, and how have you addressed these as you support implementation?
Thanks a lot, Bhuvna, for the question, and thanks for having me on the panel. A very good evening to all the participants who've joined. If I look at the current THR guidelines and try and talk a bit about the implementation blockades, I'd probably like to club them into, a couple of categories. One is, firstly, kudos to the government for having developed a set of guidelines which go beyond just calories and proteins. Because in the name of giving a product, some of our own initial research suggests that, states were adding huge amounts of sugar because there is a cost norm and then there's a caloric norm and a protein norm. And within the cost norms, to be able to meet the amount of calories provided, the cheapest source was sugars. And therefore, for the state and the country to decide to move away from calories and proteins and have norms on the protein quality, on fat content, on carbohydrate content, etc., I think that's very, very revolutionary. But having said that, if I look at the roadblocks and some of the implementation challenges, I guess one of the things, despite the guidelines being great, is probably the fact that you need to produce a product which meets PDCAS, which meets, cereal pulse ratio, and getting those calculations right is really not easy. We work with several state governments and we're helping them redesign their products. It is quite an effort to meet all of those different parameters that have been set out. The second gap that I see in the guidelines is, again, excellent that we now recommend micronutrient content. But what the guidelines leave space for interpretation is that we're not sure whether the micronutrient content needs to come from the food matrix or it needs to be a mix of the food matrix and fortification, which is another gap that probably could do with some clarification. The third area, and because of these gaps, what I see, states doing is probably reaching out to institutes of repute for the design part of the products, because departments would not have the sort of capacity that is needed to be able to align to the current guidelines. The third area of concern is that we do have guidelines, but we've not still heard as to the cost norms. Giving such a nutritious product will, of course, come at a certain amount of money. And for all of us who've been working in the States, we recognize that, giving a quality product within the current norms is completely not doable. So we need clarity and at the earliest on the cost norms. The other thing is that of late, we've had a lot of states, because in the middle of COVID, many states moved towards dry ration, which actually, as per the guidelines, is questionable, not really allowed. Because with dry rations, the food actually goes into the family pot and it's not really targeting the child or the pregnant lactating women. Now, communities have grown used to these dry rations because for them it's good, it's going to the family pot. So the states which are trying to bring about this change and move from a dry ration to a recipe-based product, it's not going to be easy. There's a huge amount of communication that needs to be done. The Anganwadi worker or the frontline functionary first needs to be capacitated to be able to talk well and meaningfully about, why are we moving from a dry ration, or why are we moving from one recipe-based product to another recipe-based product? Because unless we do so, the community will not necessarily, accept something like this. And just two more issues where I feel that the guidelines need some clarity and some clarification is that probably a set of operational guidelines. We do have the NFSA norms, but how do we translate that into action? So a set of operational guidelines would be very useful. And within the ICDS space, we also have guidelines on the quality of the product, which would again also need to be revised to make it aligned to the new nutrition norms. So those are some of the blockades that I see that states would face going forward. So I'll stop here and hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Shariqua. Now that I have you, I just have a quick follow-up question based on Dr. Arlappa's presentation, which really piqued my interest, is that how THR is inadequate for some children and that states need to do more, even let alone some, but moderate acute malnutrition as well. And in the states that you are supporting, how do you support the states in terms of addressing acute malnutrition through, let's say, a community engagement, or how does THR play a role in that?
So this is a space where probably our sister organization UNICEF does more work, but in the states where we work, because the norm is actually not really for SAM children, but for severely underweight children, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to see how we can get products which are aligned to, let's say, the recommendations of the World Health Organization, but at the same time locally available, and therefore can address the needs of both the SAM children as well as the severely underweight children. And in quite a few states where UNICEF is leading this effort, they've been able to push forward a better product within the existing norms, but the product that has the right profile to be able to address the needs of severely underweight and severely malnourished children.
Thank you. Thanks so much for clearly articulating the difference and what does that mean in terms of action on ground. I want to go back to Dr. Nair for a question on so there is so much of work that has happened in terms of micronutrient adequacy and looking at adequacy, both macro and micronutrient, for different age groups within children below 3 years, which is a very welcome step. But how do you now see, Dr. Nair, that central government can support states? There were some pointers that Dr. Arlappa discussed in the key takeaways towards the end. But how would you articulate how central government can support states as we look to operationalize the change in supply chain or the change in THR quality and product formulation?
Okay, so what the government is expecting all the states to carry out is, there is a format available with Niti Aayog that has been shared with all the states. So when you look at the document, it very clearly gives us certain guidelines how to address this and what are the action points which one can implement. So some models have been suggested. So the current working model, the best models which are going on is in Andhra and in Kerala, which has been taken up. And what they have done is, so what has been also told to the states is that to have a localized impact on the entire thing. So when we say that, what Kerala did is, the basic thing is to have the 9 micronutrients in place. Now Kerala has added 2 more micronutrients which they could afford from their own state into it. And also they are using the fortified oil and other fortified food products, which are completely agreed by the government. Though the government is not ready to fortify the entire rice for entire state, some districts have adopted that. So keeping fortification as one of the model is one aspect to it. And the second one is when we are talking of the micronutrients and the macronutrients, that balance is to be set from the state itself. And what also has been suggested to the states is, as it was pointed out, that the cost effectiveness is a big question, that when you do it in a localized manner, usually since it is a rollout in the localized manner, we want that ask the local people to take the onus, because it's our own children, our own surroundings, our own people. So women self-help groups have been asked to roll into this whole system. And I think in most of the places that is working. Of course, there is plus minus to it. I'm not saying everything is a big success. I will share some experiences in Gujarat itself, which I have visited personally. So I have gone to the end borders of Gujarat towards the borders of Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. And what we found was the THRs were brought to the Anganwadis, and local recipes have been tried by adding locally available foods. So why I went to these end border states is these are the dry most regions and most farthest regions. I wanted to see, is there a benefit happening in those levels? Not that it was all that great, but at least in some places, what we saw was in a week, twice they were able to bring additional things and provide for the children. Some of the people used local NGOs and took support from them, and they could run it through those local NGOs. So there was a connect between the ICDS, especially the Anganwadis of that area, and the local NGO, and that support was provided to them. Now, when it came to that age-wise, still a little bit of things to be done more, and this was particularly when we saw with children, say below 5 years. So we are yet to see how the catch-up growth is affecting. That little bit of more work has to be done, because we have sensitized the people, but I think one or two more sensitization workshops locally, if conducted, people will get some more ideas on how to take care of themselves. Because to me, what government does is one part, and we should have the onus to take it to ourselves and locally run it. Then only it becomes sustainable. Everything, government can give us guidelines, government will put the initial money process, funds which can be flowed in, and our own local NGOs should be able to support us during the journey. Over to you.
And that's a very important point you've added, Dr. Nair. Thank you so much for that. As to how states and communities and partners involved in the provision of THR co-own the exercise, create their own decentralized level innovations. And that actually brings me to our next panelist. Thank you so much, Sangeet, for joining us. Unfortunately, the director couldn't be here with us today, but I'm very happy to introduce Sangeet Kumar, who is the project manager for business development at Jivika in Bihar. And he comes with 11 plus years of experience in livelihood promotion and enterprise promotion with NGOs, and experience in consulting firms and governments across farm and non-farm teams. Thank you so much for being with us today. And in fact, Dr. Nair's response of how state governments and state partners can take forward the guidelines and make it their own and create opportunities to provide nutritious foods brings us to you, because we want to hear from you as to how Jivika is supporting ICDS in Bihar in ensuring timely procurement, production, and delivery of high quality THR. And if you could share us your experience from Bihar.
So thank you, Bhuvna ji. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sangeet. Thanks for the opportunity. So it all started with Gains and Nidan's support, wherein we could establish 5 units that could supply THR to ICDS. Currently, we are operating these 5 units, and we are supplying around 30 metric ton per month from these units to the concerned Anganwadis that are connected with these units. So as far as the planning part is concerned for the production, we have our production target for the month, and we procure centrally according to the procurement plan that we have to furnish in order to supply the THR to those concerned units. And we in every lot, every month, we do lab testing. That is how we keep a tab on quality parameters, so that all the parameters which Dr. Arlappa was talking about would be ensured in the supply of THR. Apart from that, we also have trained our workers working on these in these units on GMP and food and hygiene practices, so that all the quality is ensured in the production of this thing. So I would say that Jivika is not only working on this nutrition-centric model, but also a model wherein livelihood and nutrition converge and gives self-employment to these SHG women to be the beneficiary of these Anganwadi Kendra linked SAM and pregnant and lactating women also, and as well as the producer also.
Thank you. If I may ask you a quick follow-up question, Sangeetji, on the whole idea around acceptability of the take-home ration that is provided for be it children and women, pregnant women and nursing mothers. How does the Jivika support enable or ensure or create that space where the product that is provided is acceptable and is actually consumed by the ICDS beneficiaries?
So in that context, we do a lot of activities that are correlated or are complementary to the main activity of producing and supplying of THR. So what we do is we have recently prepared recipe booklets wherein this basic material of THR could be formed into various products like laddus, idli, upma, all these variants, so that people will have a variety of choices to choose and then accept it more. Secondly, we do periodic melas wherein we do test camps of these products and awareness camp of these products and their uh, acceptance among the target beneficiaries. That's how we connect to them.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sangeetji. I want to ask the similar question to Shariqua in terms of your experience of supporting, let's say, Rajasthan or Uttar Pradesh. Have you done any contextual tweaking of the THR formulations? For instance, what Dr. Nair was also talking about. What has been your experience of adding that extra layer based on the THR guidelines in creating that state level desirability or preference, contextual preference for the food that's provided?
Sure. Thanks again, Bhuvna. So I guess somebody also within the chat box raised this issue of acceptability. And we've also realized in our work that unless you make the THR acceptable, there is very little chance that it'll get consumed. So in our formulations, there are a couple of things that we take care of. One is, way back in 2019, we had done a study, and one of the biggest issues that came out in that study was product monotony. And oftentimes it was the same product that the baby was getting right from the time the baby entered the ICDS system till the time the child exited. And the mom was also getting the same product, probably just in a higher amount. So one learning has really been to address product monotony. So having at least, within the limits of practicality and feasibility, one product which is, for want of a better word, slightly sweet, and one which is savory, so that there's some variety which is there. In our product formulation, the components that we consider the ones which are locally available. We also, for the longest time in ICDS, the take-home rations were given by, put some wheat, put some pulses, put some sugar, and you have a product, right? There wasn't any R&D to the product development phase. So we've tried to institutionalize that as a guiding principle. all the products that we develop, we take them through a phase of acceptability studies. We do shelf life studies. We also do production trials, because you can put things together, but whether it can actually be produced and packaged well. So we've tried to apply a lens of R&D to all the product development. Once we have data from our acceptability studies, and if there's any fine tweaking based on what the community feels, we sort of build that in as well. The other thing is that a lot of our work is done with women's self-help groups, whether it's Rajasthan, whether it's UP. UP is the most mature project that we have as of now, or even in the work that we've done in Orissa, or going forward in Haryana, we work with women's self-help groups. And that also helps in addressing this issue of acceptability and intake, because you have women from the same community producing these THR product, and therefore, the community is self-assured that it's being delivered with the best intent of that woman who's engaged in the process. We also have built in feedback loops, so that there's like a grievance redressal mechanism. If they've opened a packet, there's something wrong with the packet. All of these are small measures, but they go a very long way in building consumer confidence, so to say, and probably taking some of the best principles of the private sector and trying to apply it to a public sector scheme is what we're trying to do. The last thing that I would say is, there is idealism and then there is practicality, because at one point in time, somebody suggested to us, why don't you change the product every 4 months? That's really not possible. It's a great idea, but if you're working with women's self-help groups, etc., that may be just too much to take on. So those, go with the best intent, but it still needs to be tailored within the framework of practicality and what can eventually get delivered on the ground. Over.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Shariqua. I think you've really touched upon very important points on, especially on the whole bringing an R&D rigor into a product formulation and not necessarily looking at a same powdered version of something that's given to both children and mothers. Now, I think this leads very well to a question I want to ask Sangeetji again to you on the work that you do in Jivika. I do understand that you have a very human-centered approach to the products that you develop. If you can reflect a little bit on how are you looking at potential reformulations or potential given the THR norms, how do you look at creating that space where the food is still desirable and that there is community acceptance in it, and the fact that you are also a very strong SHG movement in India is helpful, and your human-centered approach further gets that buy-in. So if you can take us through a little bit of some of those innovations that you do in ensuring that to the extent possible within the given cost norms, how are we trying to continuously innovate to provide products that are actually what would be palatable and desirable?
Right. So I think that's not just related with Jivika. I think all the stakeholders who are involved in the process have a role in that. I think that innovation will come when everybody, government will play one role, other partners like the private institutions, academics institutions, research institutions will all participate with their contribution in the entire process. So, for example, government, as Mr. Dr. Arlappa was saying, that beyond the central norms and contribution, if a state can also contribute with a pie in this entire process, that could also make this entire process of THR making feasible, sustainably viable, economically viable for these units to operate. So likewise, I would also underline that there is a certain role which academic institutions can also play in terms of research of how these take-home rations are contributing in the health of nutrition deficient populations in different parts of countries. That will itself give a boost to this entire process that we are doing. Likewise, partner agencies, like we have here partnered with NIFTEM for new recipe development. That is all aimed at gaining more grounds for its acceptance as a new product within the community. So where on one side we are asking NIFTEM Kundli to develop new recipes so that it will have better acceptance in the community, and parallelly we are also reaching out to community in designing the same, in saying that these are 4 or 5 options. How do you look at it? Where do you have acceptance, or you can contribute a bit more to it? So they are also contributing in that. So I think all of these factors, if come together, can have a better impact on having more acceptance that way and bringing innovation to this entire process.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much, Sangeet, and quite exciting to look at how different partners are coming together to really drive this larger conversation. It's important. I want to come to Dr. Nair to sort of wrap up this conversation to say, how do you see you've worn different hats to that extent of seeing it as a researcher, seeing it as somebody supporting the government in terms of policy formulation and advice to that. How excited are you about the momentum around this? There is, of course, all of this is for the better when we're talking about the products, the formulation or the reformulation that has been recommended, and of course it's going to go through its own cycle of how this gets implemented. And as a result, like you were suggesting, some states are already showing innovations on this. So overall, what is your sense on how exciting, how promising, and how eventful a space this is in terms of people coming together to make this happen?
Okay, so I'll give a multifaceted approach which has been thought at the government level. First one was that we wanted to make these calculations, remove the sugar because we are an NCD capital, diabetes is rising. That was a big pressure. We had to align WHO codex and dietary guidelines for India and come out with all the suggestions which was possible. We did understand that the cost would be changing, and that we had already sensitized the ministry that this has to be spilled over. So there was scientists involved. More than 9 to 10 meetings happened in discussing what should be done, how it should be done, etc. And finally, everybody was of the suggestion that we can do it if the states would take the onus, and let's go forward and see how it works. So WHO was also involved in a few discussions, and what they suggested was we welcome this movement, but we want to see how the states would take it up. So the response given from the central government to the state government was to have the trainings done through the Ministry of WCD, and that is where they have voluntarily taken it up and conducted training across the country. And as to my memory, they did 2 satellite trainings across the country where everybody was sensitized, number one. Number two, looking at what we have in hand and what we need to achieve, that gap is as it has to be addressed very well. So some states which are doing very well are some of the examples which we are citing to others to see. Not necessary that everybody is consuming the same food products everywhere. So we tied up to 2-3 research institutions. We have tied up to 2-3 IITs, NIFTEMs, etc., to see what they can make. So some products which are being made from NIFTEM Kundli, I would like to comment on that. We have asked them to make certain products to see how the taste and shelf life can be improved. And few products which they came up was good. And I think that we are now in a position to say, okay, this can be scaled up. So a bit of quality assurance, we want to work on that, and that's being done. So similarly, the IITs also are trying out we are also aligning them to see the quality check or any suggestions with NIN, with CFTRI in place. Looking at all these institutions pitching up to address the component of malnutrition, especially through the take-home rations. I think it's a challenge, but it is moving. Looking at the smaller children, as I said, we wanted to remove the sugar. So let me give some inputs on the adolescents THR, which we observed. And I have observed specifically in Gujarat. And what we saw that the very exciting was that the adolescents themselves were made responsible to come to the Anganwadis. Some places it was some fourth Saturday, some places it was on a Tuesday, depending upon their schooling timing. And the school children came out to help the school dropouts. And they supported them with the kind of recipes which were suggested, and the products which were made were also shared among these dropouts. So, so some places are starting to do those and owning it up, and slowly, I think we are picking up the momentum. So I think it will gather a bit more speed as the states would take up little bit more of their own responsibilities, and they will find out the cost, how to address, by involving the local NGOs, support from academic institutions, research institutions. And I am sure that it will take the momentum to a greater length.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Nair. And I think that sort of captures the whole essence of what we were envisioning the first round of this webinar would be, which is to say that yes, there is a lot that has to happen, and yes, there is a lot of momentum that's already happening in terms of the newer guidelines, which is a welcome step in terms of the regulations, be it the macronutrients and the micronutrient requirement, and making it age appropriate. And what it means in terms of translation for implementation, we heard from our partner from World Food Program, Shariqua. Then we also heard from Jivika as to what are the different ways they're trying to address the requirements and some of the support areas that are needed for the government to also provide as next steps, certain operational guidelines and quality mechanisms, quality control recommendations that are required as we look to reformulate based on the newer guidelines. And it's quite exciting to see that this space brings together people for the larger good. And the idea of very often it's the vulnerable population that hold the dual burden of both the communicable, the malnutrition, but also the non-communicable as they grow old. So in a lot of ways, while it in the immediate run poses a challenge of calorie inadequacy because of the whole no sugar part, but we do hope that as we progress through and with additional support from and clarifications from research institutions, think tanks, and partner organizations, we would be able to look at this with a newer lens and looking at how this makes take-home ration as we move forward better. I'm really thankful to all the speakers who have been here with us for the last hour, but please do bear with us for another 20 minutes because there are a few questions that we have received in the chat box. I'll quickly place it up. I'll start with the first question for Dr. Arlappa, and that's from Dr. Sunita Chandorkar. And the question is, can Dr. Arlappa answer the question? We are trying to revise the THR. However, the current THR is not utilized for various reasons. Have we done enough to address that before revising the guidelines? The low MDD and MMFF may be due to non-utilization of THR. Over to you, sir.
Regarding non-utilization of THR, the question is on?
Yes. Yes, given that now there is non-utilization already of the current version, has this been considered when we are trying to look at revision of the THR?
First of all, the overall NNMB experience reveals that, but at a household level, the dietary diversity itself is very low. They are consuming monotonous diets because of the cultural poverty or cultural this implication. At the same time, the THR, majority states are giving dry ration. So that this is one of the reasons. That's why the total, the MAD it consists of dietary diversity. Dietary diversity component is very poor, only 24%. Whereas minimum meal frequency, the mothers are not aware of how many times they should feed their child. These together are contributing the low prevalence of MAD in India. That's the same thing reflecting in the NME data across the urban, rural, and tribal, where their micronutrient through their diets are very negligible. They are not meeting even 1/3 of their requirements.
Agreed. And the fact that every state has different, or at least not every state, there is a significant state level difference in terms of the protein and calorific value does not also help the larger conversation. Thank you. Thanks so much, Dr. Arlappa. I want to take up the next question from Kumar. I don't know who this is addressed to, so I'm just going to put it for all panelists, whoever wants to, or Dr. Arlappa, whoever wants to answer this question. As we suggest MDD for children, are we not also risking inclusion of more contaminants such as harmful chemicals and microplastics? But I suppose, okay, that's a different conversation, but maybe we try to answer this. What steps do we take to minimize the whole harmful aspects of chemical fertilizers or pesticides or microplastics? Also, what measures do we take to take regarding malabsorption of nutrients in children? Is there, I do see there's not a very direct linkage between the whole pesticide aspect of it, but we do, I guess this was touched upon in the whole conversation of guidelines on the quality of the products and the sourcing of the products, which would answer a lot of these questions around what is the source and how do we ensure quality while sourcing of ingredients for THR. But maybe I want to direct the question on what measures do we need to take regarding malabsorption of nutrients in children to somebody in the panel or to Dr. Arlappa, if anybody wants to answer that.
Arlappa, you want to answer on the malabsorption or should I go on that?
You answer, madam. Yes, you go on, madam.
Okay, fine. So let me come to the malabsorption. So suppose when we are talking of the absorption which we are designing, the food matrix is already looked into depending upon the regions. So we have looked into the 4 regions and the consumption pattern and then designed the THR in such a way that it will blend with the food matrix of the population who are consuming it, number 1. Looking at that, we have a choice-based procurement for the general public, where we want everybody to use fortified oil when they are cooking. Without oil and without salt, nobody is going to cook anything. Now, adding 2 to 3 micronutrients in them has helped us to make the medium viable for better absorption. So, expected they take it in the right quantities and with the kind of food which goes in, it is expected that the absorption has to happen the best with the given minimal level of consumption of those fortified products, number 1. Number 2, as somebody has asked, how the quality is assured. So there is a third-party assignment given independent once this product is ready, the THR is ready. They pick up the samples independently, analyze whether these are with the least level of the the additives which are added, or with the least level of what we call as pesticides which are permitted. Very recently, we had also one more discussion where we said 0.0001 in the food which has to come. That is very, very, very minute. Beyond that level, we cannot go. That is what our panel for additives and the panel for the pesticides suggested. Especially, I spoke on the infant food because we were designing and reformulating it, and I wanted to have some answers from them. So it is not that nothing is looked into it or not taken care of. So these issues are taken care by the quality control division. There is a quality control division and a quality assurance which happens, and their job is to assign independently to the third party so that we also don't know who even went for those evaluations. We get the results, and then from the results, we suggest what comes to the panel. So when it comes back to the panel, we do address accordingly. So these two things are the major issues which we usually see now. When we talk of children who are SAM, the whole process is slightly different because their diets are best attached to the baby-friendly hospitals and also to where they are having rehabilitation centers, nutrition rehabilitation centers. And as to me, they follow the protocol which WFP suggests as an emergency approach. So as I earlier also said, these are public health programs. These are the best reach outs which we can do. And when they avail it also, there may be ups and downs to the programs, but I still would say the program should run over a period of time. It will take its toll. So it will move further once we also put in the efforts. Thank you, Bhuvna.
Thank you, Dr. Nair. I'll take, in just being mindful of time, I'll take two questions. One is for Sangeetji for you from Amrish Dubey. And the question is Jivika procuring ingredients of THR from local farmers? This will help small farmers in improving their livelihoods.
Yes, absolutely. I've also answered in the chat box there. So basically we have some community institutions that are dedicated to aggregating the produce of that region and then doing further trading and marketing. So we have one such institution by the name of Grameen Bazaar, which does aggregation work from its SSG farmers and then provides market connects with that FFU in the region. That's how we are operating.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Sangeetji. I'll just take one last question from Rohini, probably Shariqua or Dr. Nair. How can we work around the current budgetary constraints and centralized production models, especially when standardization in cooking and preparation at the household level is not happening consistently? Are there operational flexibilities or innovations we can explore to ensure both nutritional quality and uptake at the community level?
So I guess the guidelines don't insist whether it needs to be like centralized production or it can be decentralized. Having said that, the cost is an issue in both both the sort of modalities, whether it's centralized production or decentralized production. I can speak more for decentralized production because that's where a lot of our experience is. So when we work with women's self-help groups, what we encourage them to do for the procurement of the raw material is at the district level to form consortia, because when they're working in consortiums, there's a certain economies of scale that they can achieve and therefore bring down the cost of some of the raw materials. And for some raw materials, especially the ones which qualify as high risk, high value commodities, we encourage the state to procure it and then pass it on to the women self-help groups. So those are, two things that we do to increase the overall cost efficiency and sort of ensure that we're still delivering quality. Whereas at the same time, we're still meeting, because one thing that's really important is whether it's a women's self-help group-led model or it's a decentralized or it's a centralized production model, whoever is in it will also want to make a certain amount of profit, right? And therefore, that little space needs to be there, and that can be best achieved if we can do some of the procurement at a certain higher level so that it brings in an amount of economies of scale. I hope that answers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. I hope that answers your question, Rohini. Please feel free to add in the chat if there's anything you'd want to add to it. Sorry, my internet was lost. Am I audible now? Yes. Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So I just have one more question. I see a couple of questions on SPCC or public awareness. So maybe I'll take this question from Nikita. How important is public awareness really in terms of adoption of THR new guidelines? Is that required? Or is that something that, the governments and the partners are facilitating in the provision of THR? Is that something for them to be very wary of or mindful of? If it is important, how do we see, what strategies do we see can be employed to effectively raise this awareness? Again, I would love to come to Shariqua or Dr. Nair on this. How have you seen this play out in your state, for instance, Shariqua? And then maybe Dr. Nair, what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. So I guess there are two parts to this question. One is I don't see like if we tell the community, probably what Nikita is trying to ask is that if the community knows there are these new guidelines which are available, will they start demanding for a newer product? I am not sure that may happen, but what I do see happening is that when a new product is available, if we can build in enough awareness around that product, and to build in awareness, the first step is to ensure that the Anganwadi worker is well aware of what the product is. How is it better than the previous product? Because again, for the longest time, the Anganwadi worker and the helper see their roles only as picking it up and passing it on. They never talk about how it needs to be fed, how many times, in what form, etc. In fact, they don't even say that it needs to be targeted to a particular individual. So first, foremost, we need to work on building the capacities of the Anganwadi workers, and then using that to enhance awareness and, a 360-degree multimedia approach from everything from the recipe booklets that the director from Jivika talked about, to videos, to, we've used WhatsApp channels, etc. Because, a good quality assured, nutritious THR could be a huge entry point for improving infant and young child feeding practices as well as preventing malnutrition. And all of that will not happen if we do not focus enough on awareness.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Dr. Nair, would you like to add something to that?
I can add on. So I was just remembering few things. There was in Odisha, there was this management information system, I think, which WFP had worked out. And when we look at the data, it also talked to us about different steps which they adopted at some point of time, which helped. That was along with the government, and that was one step which moved across, and right from the procurement of raw materials to processing it and bringing it to the table. And the distribution, of course, has to be taken care, and that is one which the intra-household, that distribution, once if not taken care, then what we want to achieve may be a big question. In Gujarat, the program was called as Pushti, which was again through the supply chain of the Gujarat government, and they had very clear instructions by the third week of the month. They are supposed to generate a document which would tell them how much of their stock is there and how much to procure further. And in Andhra, when you look at, they had a lot of different aspects where they had a software which they called as e-sadhana to develop and get those things done. And I think the awareness which was created, first of all, it was, as I said, sensitized through the platform, which was through the satellite program. And this was, I think, 2 years back before we started this whole movement. Maybe 1 or 2 such repetitions can happen. And that will help the training to go at one go itself. And the Anganwadi pen or the ICDS people being equipped with that knowledge, they are the ones who will disseminate this locally to the mothers. And if you observe, the mothers do listen to them specifically when certain instructions are given. So they are a big connecting point for this whole program. And the functionary beneficiary contact is very high between these groups because they are the ones who are the last point which we can reach to and talk about. So I think that should work. And as I said, academic institutions, other NGOs who are locally around can pick up, support, give the training, or put hoardings for SBCC, advertise them. Government does advertise them through the information broadcasting system. And we have also said that put radio jingles, because nowadays people put a lot of things through the radio, and people do listen the radio at even the last village when you go to a village. So SPCC does play a very major role, and once they are aware, they will at least try something new which has come. May accept, may not accept, taste, etc. is a big challenge, but they do come out with some inputs.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Bora,
Thanks so much. Yes, sir.
if time
Yes,
permits,
sir.
can I answer one question? One of the questions: are there any
Yes, sir,
evidences
please.
locally produced energy dense foods were used in THR worked on the status of malnutrition? Can I answer this question? One of the questions by
Yes.
Kashish Bora. And I
Yes, sir,
will
please.
give my Telangana experience. And as for the NFHS 5, there was a prevalence of severe acute malnutrition very high in Telangana, 8.5 or around 9. That time there is no special food for this one, these Sham children. There the Ministry of DWCD, Telangana and UNICEF, NIN formulated Balamrutam plus. Earlier was existing one was Balamrutam, but that is meant for the normal children. We developed a special food, adding additional protein and calories as well as the fortification of some micronutrients. And we did a pilot study in 2 districts where after supplementation of this product for this one 16 weeks for SAM children and 8 weeks for MAM children, there was a significant improvement there in nutritional state that become normal. 55% of the SAM children and 85% of the MAM children become normal. Based on that, the government of India scaled up the program to the entire state, from 2 pilot districts to entire state. Now the result may be, evidence may come once again if after this is NFS 6 may give the results, because NFHS 5 they are the high prevalence SAM. Now this NFHS 5 our DAPSI study may give the what is the impact of this revised special THR for malnourished children. But this calorie gap, protein gap may be vary from state to state. That's why each state has to calculate separately what is the existing calorie gap among the under 5 or 1 to 6 months to 36, and especially each state. Accordingly, they have to formulate their THR with respect to their states. Yes.
Also, Dr. Arlappa, maybe you can answer. Somebody has asked a question, Mr. Atul Sonavane. How soon can we see the NFHS 6 completely implemented within India? Because website is not given. Since you are a big epidemiologist and going across the country doing the data, you can maybe answer that.
What is the release of report or what?
Yeah, how can we see the NFS 6 completely implemented within India? That's what the question is.
Cannot.
I think still A lot of work
speculation already,
still
speculation.
going on. Yes, under speculation. So I think that's what we have, the whole thing. And I hope Priya's question I have answered. She has put directly to me on the SBCC component. And Godpule sir has asked a question. With largest manufacturers of micronutrient premixes and manufacturing unit of BASF has been closed due to huge fire on the Tari force going on. Is there any industrial house is likely to start manufacturing micronutrient TS in India? Sir, to answer you, we have had some of those inputs which have been coming to, and the stakeholder meetings are happening with the government, but at this point of time, nothing has been decided. We may have one or two such units coming up, and that decision is yet pending.
Thank you. And I
Nidhi
think
Ralhan
there's
has put a
yeah.
question to Shariqua. Please go ahead.
Would you
Bhuvna,
want
can
to
take it
answer
up.
that, Shariqua? Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I just sort of typed the answer. So I was,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, basically, totally agree that the cost norms were last revised in 2017, and there's been a huge amount of food inflation since. And therefore, it's becoming increasingly difficult for states to be able to supply a quality product under the existing cost norms. But what I do see quite a few states doing is to continue to provide a quality product. They're pitching in from their state budget. Very recently, the state of Uttar Pradesh has pitched in almost close to 200 crores to be able to continue to provide a quality product. So a lot of the states are using their own budgets to cover the gap.
Also, Sharika, if you could maybe reflect on what are the expectations from the state? Yes, there is a NFSA guideline, and yes, there is a Ministry of WCD guideline in terms of sugar, salt. Is there a timeline that's been provided for states to really look at, consider, respond, and what's the time frame that the states can look at in terms of how they want to roll it out?
So we haven't, that's another interesting point because there is no timeline, no time frame given. The new standards came in February 2023, and to the best of my knowledge, no state has rolled it out as yet. What I'm aware of is that there are multiple states who are making these formulations, testing it, but statewide rollout hasn't happened. Last that I heard from some of the states that we are working in is that there was a central push to move towards this. But the ball is actually in the court of the government of India because they need to come out with the cost norms. It's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. Unless they give the right cost norms, you can't expect states to move to nutritious products. Over.
Absolutely. And that sort of also answers Nidhi's question in terms of the quality, if there is the cost norms are not revised. And I think you summarized it perfectly to that extent, Sharika, and I want to take a moment to thank all the participants for asking all the questions here and creating a very meaningful interaction in terms of what do these cost norms means and how do we unpack the various aspects of it. And I also want to thank the speakers for being here, taking the time to answer questions for us and to share your thoughts and your experiences and some of the innovative practices that are happening across different states, and for flagging some of the unanswered questions, deliberating on what should be the next steps when we look to answers from different partners and stakeholders and from the central government, and what does that mean in terms of how the rollout would happen across different states, and how does this answer the larger vision of addressing malnutrition as one of the intervention that builds not just food nutrition security, but also looking at nutrition resilience as we move forward. And with that being said, we wanted to have this first of the webinar as the high-level policy engagement that looks at, if we are to look at these revised guidelines, what does that mean in translating that to implementation at the state level and beyond. Now, in our next series, we want to unpack this further a little bit, bringing in state voices, looking at what are some of these best practices that are happening, how are they handling the questions of the different micro macronutrient requirements and the different questions around quality and meeting budgetary requirements, how are they able to handle it or unable to handle it, what are the different questions that's coming from the ground as they try to make sense of the guidelines and unpack it further. That's the plan for our next webinar in the Thrive webinar series. So please do keep a lookout for our next one in the coming months, and we do hope you'll continue to engage with us as we move forward. Thank you so much to all the participants, to the speakers. Especially, I want to take a minute to thank Dr. Arlappa, Dr. Sirimavo, Nair, Dr. Shariqua, and Sangeetji from Jivika for joining us today in sharing your insights with us. And I also want to take a minute to let you know that if you'd like to stay connected with us with the Nutrition Futures Initiative and receive updates from our upcoming sessions, insights, and co-innovation opportunities, please sign up through the link in the chat and the QR code on your screen, and we continue to co-create ideas and actions that move us closer to nutrition secure futures. We also want to take a minute to thank the socialprotection.org platform as well for supporting us in putting together this webinar series. And please do have a chance to, please do visit the site, because we'll be putting up content that has emerged from the discussion here, and we continue to engage in this conversation in bringing in more voices as we move forward in the Thrive series. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.